One of the very first Purple Alphabet videos was about sensory bottles, and they were so much fun to make. I really enjoyed that video and having my own sensory bottles. So I thought, how can we put together some sensory items and make some sensory kits? So in this video today, I'm gonna show you what I came up with for sensory kits. Hey you guys, it's Christina from the Purple Alphabet and welcome to my channel. We are talking about sensory things. Actually, I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel about sensory items, sensory bags, sensory bottles, sensory everything. So I'm gonna put those together into a playlist so you can go and check it out. I'll put the link down below in the description box. If you're new around here, I do educational activities for kids and ideas and inspiration so you can learn through play at home with your kids. And I love to hear all the inspirations that you've been doing at home. So leave me a comment down below letting me know what you've tried or even some ideas that you may have. I really do love reading your comments. It's like one of the best things ever. So today I'm gonna take all of those things that we love about sensory items and sensory bottles and I'm gonna put them together into some sensory kits. These sensory kits can be adapted to what you might have at home or maybe some things you might pick up at the store, but find whatever works for you to create them. And as always, make sure you're using your best discretion on what is age appropriate for your child. Every child's different. Every child has a different skill level, so keep that in mind when watching. So let me show you the sensory kit ideas that I came up with. I'm going to be showing you some sensory kits that I'm using with these boxes. They came from IKEA. They're one of my favorite boxes, but when you're looking for a box to do this sort of activity, just keep in mind what you have around the house. It's important for me to let you guys know that you can use what you already have because that's essentially what I did for this whole entire video. This box comes from IKEA. I like it because it has the divided containers. It's pretty large. I would say probably just a little bit bigger than a shoebox. You could also use a shoebox. You could use a smaller box. I just like it because it keeps everything stored separately. You can also take off the lid here and play on top of the lid if you wanted to, which I think is kind of cool. This box I think was under $5. Very similar to my restaurant kit style, I'm gonna create these with you and show you the things I'm putting in. I opted for a more simple kind of box and trying not to stuff it full of things. This box, I'm starting with a base of Play-Doh. I'm gonna keep mine in the container itself just because it's a little bit easier and it fits right there. I have seen tons of these on Pinterest where people take out the dough or make the dough themselves and put it in as well. I just don't think this box is meant to keep that kind of dough very long, and this Play-Doh container is definitely going to last a lot longer. So I have some white Play-Doh here that we're gonna start as a base. This is great because it's great for molding with the hands, fine motor, hand strengthening, and it's a really good base to have because you can basically create anything with it. I decided to go a little bit on a theme with this box and do maybe an under the sea theme. This is a character from the Safari LTD tubes. I've used them before in busy boxes with my 3-part Montessori cards. And this little under the sea theme has a turtle, a little penguin, a starfish, a whale, octopus, and actually has quite a bit more, but I'm going to keep this simple. Hammerhead shark, and just put a few select favorites in here. So I thought it'd be fun to have something that could go on land and then some other things that just stay in the water. So we can create sort of a little sea themed scene, maybe, I don't know. That's the fun part about these boxes, is that it leaves open for creativity. And then over in this little compartment, I pulled together some whatnots. Little doodads. So I have some really large googly eyes here, which I think are kind of fun because they're super, super big. And then I have some smaller eyes too and some buttons. And so I just figured that I'm going to leave that up to my child's imagination and how they're going to use that. Maybe they won't even use them, but just enough to create a couple different things, either with the dough or to use with the animals. And because we are using the Play-Doh, I wanted to include some cookie cutters. These are from 2 different sets. Like I said, I kind of shopped my house and tried to find things that we could use. I have a fish Play-Doh cutter here, and then a star, and I picked the star for more of a starfish kind of idea. That's what I'm thinking. So I'll put those there. And then I'm gonna put some of these popsicle sticks. I don't know if they'll get used, but I'm gonna be curious. I'm actually curious to see what they may do with those. And then 2 other Play-Doh tools. So this little knife came from Dollar Tree, and it's actually in the arts and crafts section. It was meant for using with paint, like a paint palette spatula. And so I think this would be a great tool for using with dough and cutting. It's just a little plastic knife, and it has different angles on here. So you could do some scoring, some full-on cutting. So we'll see what happens with that one. And this is a roller to help roll it out. And rolling is a great activity because when a child rolls, they're really using those muscles for some great hand pressure and putting some heavy work into what they do. And so that's a really good tool to use for that. So we're going to put that in there. This is my completed box. It doesn't look like too much. It's not too full, which I kind of like. I'm keeping it very, very simple. I've seen pictures of these just chocked full of stuff, but I think simple is better in this case. And so I present this to our child, and then they can go and explore the box and then create on their own whatever they wish. The sky's the limit. You might even find them doing some role playing with all the animals. You might find them creating a house. You might find them creating their own animals and sea animals with these other finds, or doing some just basic punching out with some of the cookie cutters. The idea is that there's just different things to play with and use in your hands to have kind of like a sensory box, a sensory bin experience, but just in a less scattered way. In a traditional sensory bin, you have a whole bunch of items and you put them inside and you look for them and you try and find them. This one, you're kind of using materials. It's kind of the next level of a sensory bin. For this next box, I wanted this one to be less of a theme and more of a texture box. So different textures inside of this one. So I'm using the same box as I used before. I'm gonna have a couple bases for this one. This is play foam, which is kind of like those plastic or actually styrofoam beads. It's in different colors, orange and 2 shades of orange and yellow, and it's moldable, and it's just a fun kind of sticky texture. If your child's not into sticky textures yet, this is a good start because you work your way up to more complex textures. This is definitely the more complex because it kind of sticks to your hand, but not really. So it's kind of a fun one to explore. You see it a lot now in the stores, and I actually have 3 balls of this. I don't have other colors. I'm gonna stick with the one color theme for this whole box actually. And so I'm gonna put that in there for exploration. You can also hide stuff inside of here. Because you can do that, I'm gonna put these little pebbles. They're actually floral filler for glass vases. They come from the Dollar Tree. You've seen me use these. I've used them for counting with a Montessori manipulative game for counting numbers. I've used them in tinkering trays. I've used them as math manipulatives. So for a whole bag of these for $1, you can do so much. This came with 2 different colors, and I'm just taking the clear ones. This would have to be my smooth texture. So I have more of a rough texture. It's already sticking to my hands here. More of a rough texture here with the play foam. And then I have this really smooth kind of texture to put my fingers on. So this is probably going to be very easy for a child to play with. But what's cool about this is that you could stick them in here and hide them and try and find them and pull them out, see if you got them all, or you can create some fun things. I'm also going to add another jar of Play-Doh for another experience of squishy, and we all know what Play-Doh feels like. So I have a small jar there. And then over in my last section, I went and found some little puff balls, craft pom-poms. They're all over the place here, and I'm kind of keeping with my orange and white color theme here. And once again, this is just a fluffy, soft texture that is different in contrast to all the other ones in the box. Over here, I thought it would be fun to put some tools. Now, I always show you the tools that I absolutely love from Learning Resources. I have them in my Amazon store. You can find them there, and I definitely do recommend them. But for this one, I'm going to go a little bit different. A while back, I did a video about fine motor skills, and I worked with an author of a book who did fine motor skills, and she sent me some of these tools to try out. I'm going to include them in this box because they are great for grasping, working on that finger strength. So this one is a different kind of tong. It's much smaller. And I have another tong here that looks like this. And this is called a pickler. Put your hand on here. The little prongs come out like that, and you can pick things up. These can be found on Amazon too. I'll have to add them to my store because I don't think they're in there now. But this just adds a little bit more of that fine motor into this activity. So we're working on textures here. I don't know if I can pick that up or not. Might be too hard. I might need another tool for that one. So there we go. We're working on textures, exploring how different everything feels, and then working on our fine motor strengthening over here with all of these tools. So this is my texture box. Once again, I'm just using everything that I had already in my house. But if you want to get some of these tools, I'll definitely put a whole section in my Amazon store. This next one I wanted as a calm down box. This one's gonna have to be very specific to your child. I'm gonna give you some examples of things that you can put in here. It could be kind of like a quiet box, but it's basically a sensory box in which it has tools that your child can use to emotionally regulate themselves. So I'm going to put things in here that I know will work with my daughter because she had been working on some of these activities. So some things to include might be some fidget toys. For instance, we have your traditional fidget spinner. These are things that help a child to focus and fidget with because they might be looking for that sensorial input. So I got a fidget spinner. This little guy, I think I've shown you before, but it's kind of a fidget toy in itself where you bend all these little different pieces and you have to work it around. You can make different animals too. So I have to work it so it fits inside the box. This is an interesting one. It's actually a childhood toy that I used to have, and they make them now, but it's more of a thing to work with your hands, doing some heavy hand work. And then speaking of hands, something like magnetic blocks would be very useful. Something to fidget with and something to play around with. These are the Tegu magnetic blocks that I speak of all the time. I've put them in restaurant kits. I've given them as gifts, stocking stuffers. They are a lot of uses, and what I do like about them is that they're high quality and they are actually really, really safe for the youngest of kids because they're a good size and they are just amazing. I love these and I love the colors. They're a little bit more expensive, but they are well worth it, and you can add to your collection kind of little by little. Some other fun sensory items can include something like this, which is a squishy. So just squishing this is kind of like those stress balls, and this one has Orbeez inside of them, so you can get a little bit of sensorial input that way. This guy is gonna have to squish in here. How about we switch him out? Or even something like these are so popular mainstream right now. These little squishies that you squish and they rise real slow. They come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and some of them are even scented. So that can be part of our kit. My daughter likes to do artwork as part of her therapeutic calming down. So we have some colored pencils and a notebook here that can go in her kit. She also likes to do some oral sensorial kinds of activities, which would include something like chewing gum. So if your child likes to do some oral stimulation in order to help regulate their emotions, that might be very helpful to think about doing gum if they are of that age. And I wanted to show you some options also for emotion regulation. These are emotion wallet cards. They are no longer in print, but you can also find some kind of printables online to print these out or make your own. But inside there's these cards of all kinds of children's faces and emotions. And so if your child, I have a video about emotions, I think, in which we talk about how to recognize emotions. So this is very helpful if your child is not able to identify what they're feeling. You can talk about these and then use these if they're having a little bit of trouble with their emotions, and use something like these cards. Or if your child has been working on this is from a game called the Yoga Spinner game. But what's really cool about this game is that inside there's all of these yoga poses. And so this is also a good option just to include the actual card. You can see they give a little picture that demonstrates the yoga pose. So it's a really good way to have a visual and ways that you can calm down. So you can include something like that. And if you don't have a game like this, you could always write down the different ways to help your child calm down, whether it's doing 10 jumping jacks, whether it's, you know, doing snakes across the floor, or doing somersaults, or jumping on a trampoline 10 times. Those kinds of things you can write on a card about this size and stick them into your kit too, and your child can pick from one of those. So if you tailor this specifically to things that your child can use to calm down, even a sensory bottle would be fun inside of here, a smaller sensory bottle. I have a whole video about my favorite sensory materials that you could also take a look at. And I know some people like to do sensory corners, a little area in their home, maybe in their bedroom or in a corner where you can read a book, like a quiet zone. That's also an option, and you can put this kind of kit in there as well. Of course, I want to hear what you guys are doing at home already, or maybe you have some ideas or you're going to try something. Let me know down below in the comments. I love it. I love reading those things. Click subscribe to see more videos like this and give me a thumbs up to show your love.